Here we're building a ship in Kerbal Space Program to do the docking maneuver. We're going to start out by moving our docking port, which is our starting piece, all the way up to the top so we have room, because it's going to be a pretty long rocket. I'm not going to cover every single piece that gets placed, so pay attention to the cursor and tooltips, and slow it down if you need to. The placement of the RCS thruster blocks, which we're about to do, is pretty important because they need to be centered with respect to the center of mass. So the first block, set of 4, is going to be lined up on those 2 yellow lines on the RCS fuel tank. And the headlights we're putting on here, you might need to flip them with the D-pad to make sure they're facing forwards. This will make it a lot easier to do a night docking. A couple of generators to power our reaction wheels so that we don't run out of power and suddenly find ourselves unable to steer, which happened to my first attempt on this craft. Now the second set of thruster blocks here, we're going to place the first one kind of as a placeholder just to get our positioning right. So make sure it's lined up with the top set, but you're going to line it up so the white base is just touching that black ring at the bottom of the fuel tank. Then the second set you're going to line up so the nodules are just touching, and then you delete the bottom set. We're putting a couple small little rockets on here that will help you do those fine adjustments to get a nice close approach to make your docking relatively easy. The coupler that we're going to put on here, in between that reaction wheel and the LV909, you need to make sure to enable crossfeed, because we're going to ditch this engine as we get closer, but we do want to be able to provide it with fuel before we ditch it. And this here is pretty much what you're going to be using for most of your docking flight. The rest of this is just the big engines to get you up into orbit. And in fact, once you get into orbit, even if you still have fuel in your big engines, you may want to ditch them. It makes it a little less painful because you're more maneuverable, because you're not lugging around all that weight. But it's up to you. You should have more than enough fuel to meet up with each other once you're in orbit, just with the smaller top fuel tank. Now for the strut placement, it doesn't really matter where on the pieces they connect. All that matters is the pieces that you're connecting. So we're going to be connecting the big orange fuel tank to that smaller fuel tank. Now one thing to be aware of is if you're in radial symmetry mode and you hover over a piece with a different level of symmetry, so we're trying to do six struts here, but I accidentally hovered over those engines, which are in 2 times symmetry, so it resets it to 2 times symmetry, so you gotta be careful what you hover over. Another issue is sometimes when you place the second half of a strut, it will instead think you're wanting to pick up the piece you're placing it on, in which case hit B to delete the piece you're holding, and then left bumper plus left on the D-pad to undo, and everything should go back to the way it was. And sometimes the strut will be attached already, and sometimes it won't. In which case you can just do it over again. Here is the last section. Nice big fuel tank and another nice big rocket. And we're going to connect again This will just help it wobble around a lot less, especially as you're taking off. Otherwise, it'll be wobbling all over the place. It'll probably work okay, but it makes it harder to control and unpleasant to fly. Now the only thing left is we're going to change the staging a little. This isn't 100% necessary, but it saves you having to have extra stages unnecessarily. So we're just going to move it so that as soon as we detach the LB909, the little rockets, the little engines will start firing, and then we're going to do the same thing with the previous stages. So as soon as we detach the big orange tank, the LB909 will start